Hi, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. Check it out. I got to give a big shout out to my show sponsor, my friends over at AVLX. I also have to give a big shout out to Charles Henry and Ace Young, the amazing performers and producers of the music behind the show, as well as the amazing people that make up the Hit Lab creative team, who are the producers of the show. Folks, I have a favor to ask. If you like what you hear, and I know you do, click that subscribe button to make sure you get alerted when new episodes are dropped. Thanks for tuning in.
The real success stories told by the people who live them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks, and welcome back to another episode of The Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and check it out. Today in the Hit Lab, I've got not two, but three generations of Hyder men in the building today. My guest today is the man, the myth, the legend, the president and founder of Sandlot Sports. We call him Pops. He's my daddy, Mickey Hyder. Dad, dude, I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm sure that I'm excited also.
Well, we're going to find out. And I did mention...
Do I look excited? That's what I want to know.
Well, if you don't now, you will soon enough, I think.
Okay. I want to make the point early on that other than Charlie Monk, I'm the oldest guy you've ever had on.
That's true.
So even though I may not be talented or intelligent, at least I have lots of experience.
and there might be there's at least a couple of folks that have said you would be good looking.
They obviously needed to go see my buddy the eye doctor, but other than that,
well, it's I hope a lot of people think you're good looking because people keep telling me I look just like you.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
So, and I mentioned a third generation, and over here we're gonna let him. We're gonna open it up to him in a minute for some questions. But we've got the third generation, my son, who's a previous guest on the show, and your grandson, Ethan. Ethan, you can say hello to everybody.
I still think I'm the best.
Well, time will tell.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely the best looking, but that's because you look like your mom.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm going to pull him down just a hair, and excellent. Well, Dad, this has been so we have a lot of I get a lot of feedback. We love when people say, "Hey, you should get this person." We get a lot of guest recommendations to come on the show, and you have been somebody that has been like, "Hey, man, like when is your dad coming on? When is your dad coming on?" It's happened over and over again, and like anything else, this is a big produced machine, and now the time is now right.
Well, I'm really glad to be here. Really, as you know, I did radio for 4.5 years. I've been told many times that I have a great face for radio, and
that's the first one.
So, this is my first experience with podcasts. Yes, this is my first experience. So,
it feels just like television or radio at the end of the day, doesn't it? With the studio and everything,
it's a lot like radio. It really is. Except I could wear anything I wanted to because nobody saw what you had on that day. You didn't have to wear pants. You know, you're still good. But, I love the hit streak. I really do. I'm not saying that because you're Nick and I'm Dad. I really like the hit streak. I like the messages that it's getting across. You've had some amazing guests.
Yes, we have.
And quite frankly, that I was wondering why you would have me on the show with all these amazing guys that have done so many incredible things and had so much to say on how they got there and what made them who they are. I mean, it's amazing, really.
Well, I know we're going to, at some point, we're going to talk a lot about, especially when we get to the baseball sector of the show, we're going to talk about generations. Like, I think I've given both my parents a lot of credit on how you guys moved the generation has evolved forward with you. So when you were a kid, you had a dirt floor bathroom for a while.
Not
right?
quite that bad, but I get your point.
But you were the first person in our family to graduate from college.
True.
And then for the most part of your life, you've always been self-employed.
True. And I had trepidations when I found out that you were going to be self-employed. And I thought, geez, is that my fault?
Yeah.
And, because I thought maybe you'd go get a nice job with someone in a nice corporation and not be self-employed and have to make it every month.
If I was 20 years older, I probably would have did that. But that path doesn't really exist anymore, but for the most part. So, but the point is that so I've tell a lot of our folks and listeners and a lot of the businesses that we coach that I always felt my job was to take it a step further. Right. Mm-hmm. So just graduating college wasn't good enough because you'd already did it. Right. So I had to do something you hadn't done before. Right. So, and then it'll be his turn to continue to take the family name. And so I've studied a lot on generational wealth, just like we've all studied through church about generational sins. Mm-hmm. And but there's the good side of that too, right? So sure. It's all about just evolving forward, not backwards, which is very easy to do. It's easier to evolve backwards than it is forward.
It actually is. I did an interesting thing just yesterday where I went to Belmead Mansion, mm-hmm. and just because Kay and I like to do things like that.
Yep.
And it was amazing the story that I did not know about Belmead Mansion. It was all about the generations, mm-hmm. how that they'd went from nothing until ultra rich for the day mm-hmm. to being broke again.
Wow. That's cool.
So, there's a lot to be said. And later on the show, when we get to the generational thing, I have some thoughts about that, how that we got to where we are and wondering where we go from here.
Well, he did mention thinking, and many times he always told me, don't hurt myself. So I hope I hope you came out unscathed. Well, check this out, folks. A couple of things that you might not know about my daddy, right? So he, in high school as a baseball player, was an all-city catcher locally here at Antioch. He played for the great Ken Dugan at David Lipscomb University, and he was also in back then the men's Sandlot League was incredibly competitive, and you guys basically had a whole bunch of professional and former professional guys playing amongst you. It was they called it semi-pro, as a matter of fact, back then.
Yeah, there would be sometimes, and I'm not exaggerating, I have the pictures to prove it, sometimes 1,000 people at one of our games.
It's cool. It was really cool. It doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't exist. We had most of the players were college players or guys that should have been playing college but got married early and didn't get there. But there was everybody had a few ex-major leaguers or at least ex-minor leaguers playing, and so you put all that together, and it was highly competitive. And some of the games were highly contested.
Yeah, the independent minor league baseball is a lot like that because you get so many different generational types in there, and it's extremely I played with many guys that were the highest level of independent ball that I played at was as good as the AAA ranks, or maybe even better in some aspects because you had the big league guys.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the way the tri-state and the city leagues were in the day. That was 40s, 50s, 60s, and even part of the 70s.
That's cool.
And that's what you did if you were a baseball player.
So you played with your daddy, my grandfather, at Shelby Park.
Yep.
And then I've got here and Papa was a member. He's a member of the Nashville Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame.
He is.
And then 30 years later, the year that I was the College Wood Bat League Most Valuable Player, you drove me in as a player.
I did.
So you drove in your dad and your son on the same field. No pressure.
But that's 4 generations in and of itself. To play at one location is pretty amazing because fields don't last that long, even if families do.
That's right.
But
that's right.
107-year-old field at Shelby Park is 4 generations strong if he plays there this fall.
That's right, which he will.
And just from one family, and that's really quite incredible, actually, this day and time.
It is.
I just don't think traditions are carried on quite as strongly as they have been in the past. So I think it's tremendous that we have that little thing going on.
Well, so I've got you broken down into three different categories. One was as a player, which we just discussed. Now, as a coach, you coached before you coached me, but when you started coaching me between 1987 and 2002, you won over 500 games.
Did.
We played in 6 World Series, which back then that was something. It was different.
You had to earn your way there.
That's right. There wasn't that many. There wasn't 400 World Series that you could go play in. We played in 6, and in 1998 we won the NABF High School Division World Championship, which that stands for National Amateur Baseball Federation, right?
Correct.
Which is a very old organization.
It's the oldest, actually.
The oldest sanction, right? You coached more than 60 players that have gone on to play college or professional baseball, and then you were an instructor at Hit After Hit Baseball Academy here for about 2 decades,
at least,
give or take. And then something that you didn't even know that I told you about was that, and this was years ago. This statistic is incredibly old. It's probably doubled by then, but you had 2.6 million views on YouTube. Doing baseball instruction.
And I had no idea. There was a company called ehow.com, which still exists. And I bartered. We were doing a major showcase in the day where we would have high school and college players come out and showcase their wares. And I needed to have it videoed. And this guy had approached me about doing some ehow question videos for their company, and I said, fine.
This is before social media was really, really
right,
big.
Exactly.
You didn't know what you didn't know. And I don't think they were trying to take advantage of you. They were on the cutting edge forefront of something that's now very common.
Yeah, well, none of that was on YouTube at the time. It was just this one little site.
Yeah.
And so I did about 50 of these questions, and the guy says, okay, you got 3 minutes to answer the question, and we're probably not going to do any second take, so try to get it right the first time. And so over the period of about 4 days, we would go out there and I'd do, okay, the question is asked, how do you play baseball? And I've got 3 minutes to explain that.
Yep.
And it was crazy. And some of it I would have really liked to done one more time.
Yeah.
But because we're doing 15 today or 20 today, I've got to move on. And they said, oh, we'll edit in the, when we get back to the studio.
Well, they're very high quality for especially the time period. Gosh, when were those filmed? Like back in
I hadn't even thought about that.
Maybe 2010, 2009, 2010?
Yeah, something like that. And of course, somehow, and I, like I said, I knew nothing about social media at the time. I mean, geez, we just started doing emails and stuff in the late, like 2008, 2009, where I used to have to communicate with teams coming to the World Series there by telephone. I mean, we didn't even use email, much less the social media to communicate. And when they started showing up on YouTube, I thought, well, how did that get on there? And I still don't know how some of them got on there. I didn't post not a single one. And then you pointed out to me that some of these had 300,000 or 400,000 views.
It's crazy. The only reason I found it is because it was right around Google, when Google bought YouTube. All of a sudden, their YouTube search analytics started populating higher on Google. Right, makes sense. That's where the videos come in. And I just made it. Somebody told me a long time ago, make it a habit of always search yourself up and all that stuff to make sure what's on there is what needs to be on there, and it's factual and all that stuff. And I typed in your name, and all of a sudden, boom, it popped up, and I was like, dang, there's one with 10,000 views. That's crazy. And then the next one had like 15, and then I was like 230,000. What's going on? And I mean, it was nuts, and they all added up, and at the time, it was like 2.6 million, and this was years ago.
I know. I don't even know.
Weird.
It was really weird, and I'm thinking,
but cool.
Yeah, well, it was very cool. I mean, the fact that 2.6 million people looked at anything I said, I thought was cool. But
that's right.
But me explaining it sometimes was a challenge.
Now, as a businessman, you had a 20-year career in the music industry. And when we talk about that, we're going to put on the sunglasses because it's cool and it's show business, right?
There you go.
But you had a 20-year career in the music business as a writer, performer, music publisher, and then you also did a lot of production projects as well. And you worked with the likes of, you published Randy Travis's first big hit, 1982.
Yes.
And then you've worked with, that song was nominated for CMA Song of the Year. And then you produced albums that included such artists as Garth Brooks, Doug Stone, B.J. Thomas, the Oak Ridge Boys, and others. Those are some folks some household names.
Yeah, you got to sing on one of those albums.
I did. We were going to keep that part secret. Yeah.
We had that for those you listeners, there was a Christmas song that Charlie Chase, the big TV personality and the host he wanted to do a Christmas song. And so we did a song called Christmas is for Kids and had all the kids come in and sing on the chorus with Charlie Chase.
They did.
You've been on Sony.
That's right.
A major label singing.
That's right. We'll get that added to the website. So you did that. And then in 1999, you sold your music interest to open Sandlot Baseball, which is a baseball sanction that develops elite baseball travel teams. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. But you went from music, 2 decades in music, into now 24 years in baseball, which that's pretty cool. And since then, you are the facilitator. You are operating the 2 amazing beautiful fields at Shelby Park, as well as the one at Seven Oaks Park, named after the great Jack Lavender. And a couple quick honors for you real quick. So in 2002, you were named the Nashville Old Timers Baseball Association, that you got the Mr. Baseball Award, that's our biggest, most prestigious award, right?
That's pretty cool.
And then in 2019, Metro Parks here right in the city of Nashville, Tennessee, honored the new field number 2 at Shelby Park. It's now known as Mickey Hyder Field, where it will live forever.
I was speechless. I mean, I really did not know that was happening. Tommy Lynch and Joe Casey, a former police chief of the city of Nashville, got together and decided that was a good idea, since me and some prisoners from Darren Hall Sheriff's Department built the field.
Yep.
That they would name it after me, and I had no clue that was going to happen. In fact, I was emceeing the banquet.
Yep.
And Carter Brown introduced Tommy Lynch, and I'm going, what's Tommy?
That's not in there.
Yeah, it's not here. I can't find that in my notes. What's Tommy Lynch doing up here? And then he starts saying that they're going to rename the field Mickey Hyder Field, and I was literally totally speechless. In fact, I quoted Ethan. I said, boy, I didn't see that coming, because that's what Ethan used to say.
That's right. That's right. And then you are also a former, you're a past president of the Old Timers Baseball Association as well, which is an elite, a pretty prestigious and elite group of folks that have carried on that torch for going on 100 years here real soon.
Yeah, we did our 84th banquet this past January, which is 84 consecutive years with world wars and pandemics and everything else, snowstorms.
That's right.
The fact that we've managed to make 84 in a row is it's incredible, I think. And another part of, I mentioned some history a while ago. The field is 107 years old. Mm-hmm. That preserving history is one of my missions these days.
Yep.
Because I'd like for people to remember some of those days in the Tri-State League and some of their memories they're creating this summer.
You know why it's harder to remember the history that you're talking about? Because, like if something happened to me tomorrow, there's literally footage upon footage upon footage and pictures and pictures and pictures due to social media, where it's highly easily accessible and everything else. However, if you go back prior to 2010, it's really hard to find like a photo of me anywhere.
Right.
So it's basically what you're preserving is pre-social media, the pre-digital era, because it's so hard the archives are so hard to find and even keep up with. Like,
yeah.
Ethan's going to be we're going to be able to keep up with, look at childhood footage of him anytime we want. That's right. And it's at your fingertips.
Exactly. Well, there's been two Cy Young Award winners pitch off the mound there, R.A. Dickey and David Price.
That's right.
Mookie Betts, the MVP
That's right.
of the Major League Baseball, played many games there.
That's right. Sonny Gray.
Sonny Gray, Ken Griffey Jr., we can go on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much history there. In fact, I will steal a line from R.A. Dickey, if I may. He was on my radio show.
Super cool guy.
That I used to do.
Unbelievable.
And he said, and he told us as the truth, that he was standing on the mound in Yankee Stadium for the very first time as a rookie, getting ready to pitch. Mm-hmm. And he said, I thought to myself, man, this is a long way from Shelby Park. And I mean, that's, of all the things the man could have been thinking.
That's right.
That's pretty cool.
That's right. Well, there's so much. We could sit in here and talk for hours upon hours upon hours, and a handful of folks would enjoy that.
Maybe.
One hand.
Maybe.
One hand. But I wanted to kind of talk about the three, kind of how I've labeled you in those three categories of from player to coach to businessman. And, a lot of, pretty much most of who I am today is because of, I wouldn't have had the courage to figure out that I wasn't a good employee for other people. I needed to be in charge and in the charge, and I wouldn't know that if you hadn't have done it and had to maybe push me to grow into who I wanted to be and who I should be and all that stuff. So you guys kind of, my sister is. Incredibly, I think she's the smart one. She's incredibly talented, but she's an alpha female, and I don't think she even realizes that. Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about the history about how you grew up and how that turned into, because you are the captain of the football team as one of the smaller guys, and I've had Lester, who was your teammate, the great Lester McLean. So it wasn't like you were just playing on a bad team. You guys were a really good team. Yet you were still the captain of the football team, and then you went on to play at David Lipscomb University, where you were probably the smallest guy on the roster.
Well, that's a very valid point. The whole thing was, I realized early on, playing football especially, that I was not the biggest, fastest, strongest guy on the team. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm going to be competitive, I've got to do something more than that. And so I decided to paralyze the resistance with my persistence.
That's a good one right there. And I don't know if that's the first time I've heard that, folks.
So that's the only choice I had. Mm-hmm. There were guys bigger, faster, stronger. So how do you compete?
Yeah.
Well, I managed to figure out that games are in one. And they're in small increments. If you're playing baseball, the next pitch. If you're playing football, it's the next snap. And so instead of me playing the game, I'm playing individual pitches and snaps. And if I put everything I had into every pitch and every snap, I could somehow be competitive. And I do mean that, because it certainly wasn't intelligence or talent. So there was a funny thing that happened, and I think this is one of the reasons that I got to be football captain. But I had an altercation with an individual that was a great deal bigger than I was. And he basically threatened to take me to the woodshed. He didn't use those words, but it was going to be something happen there. And a friend of mine named Chili West, we were like best buddies. The guy threatened me, and he said, I don't think I would do that if I were you. And the big guy says, well, why? Don't you think I can take him? He said, you might, but it'll take you all afternoon. So that was the quote from Chili West. And I think that was probably true. He probably would have kicked my fanny, but I was going to make sure he was bleeding and all his clothes were torn at the very worst. And so, but that's the way I approached baseball. That's the way I approached football. Being a linebacker in football and being a catcher in high school and college, you're right in the center of everything.
That was I've said that quote about it taking all day to my guys here all the time. I'm like, look, if you want to compete and you want to play, let's go. You might even be the better player, but the game has to end at some point, and I'm not going to be the one that stops.
But yeah, I've never lost a game in my life. Time ran out on me a bunch of times.
That's right.
And that's the way I look at it.
That's right.
You know, and I just always pushed a little harder than the other guys, and somehow that, because I was calling the signals for the, both on offense and defense. Which my senior year, I didn't come off the field except when we kicked off. Every other play, I was on the field. And I was usually either calling the offensive alignment or the defensive alignment. And so that somehow transitioned into captain of the football team.
I guess so.
So, but it wasn't because I was the best player, because we had Lester McLean, who you've had on the show, and several other guys that went on to play major college football.
Yeah.
And obviously that didn't happen with me at 165 pounds.
Leaders identify themselves.
Well, I think so, but like I said, it was, persistence was my deal. I'm not going to quit until everybody just leaves. Then that's when it's over. Then I'll quit. But till then, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and I think that we don't have that going on. I have someone that I'm very close to that is currently a school teacher in metro schools here in Nashville. And he said, kids these days just shut down.
Yeah.
This is hard. I'm not going to do this. And just stop.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, what do they do from there? He said, nothing. And there's nothing I can do. I can encourage them. I can try to help them. But I don't understand that mentality. It's hard for me to get my mind around that.
Well, I was when I was thinking about some of the things we were going to talk about, and you had to you matured business wise at half the age that I did, right? So I'm 41 years old, but at 32. Even though I had played at the professional level and I'd owned some businesses and stuff, I was, as far as professionally in business, I was a failure at 32, 33 years old, because we didn't own a house. I didn't own nothing. I was still having to call you guys every 3 or 4 months for help from time to time.
Well, at some point I heard you make a statement that we didn't really prepare you for business stuff, but my thought process was, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know how to prepare you for business stuff, but I could give you some of the things that we're talking about as it related to me. And that's persistence and just outworking the other guys.
Well, there's a quote that's been going around. First, Joe Rogan had quoted it, and then other people have too. And it said, I think I'm going to get it right. It said, hard times create hard men. Hard men create soft times or good times. Soft times or good times create soft men. Soft men create hard times, right? So I learned everything that you just said, but like I didn't have to learn the rest of it as fast as you did, because I had you guys enabling me from doing that.
Yeah, well, that's
his generation.
I know, and
that's what we're going to get to,
yes,
right?
That's what I want to get to at some point.
That's what that saying comes from, is we're about to become on some hard times due to some really soft men.
I agree. It
takes 3 generations, though. There's 3 levels in there.
Well, I'm gonna go 4 generations here.
Okay.
All right, and this is my analogy, and I'm going to use a car as an analogy. Now, the car could be a house, the car could be a job. This equates to anything, but I'll just use the car as an example. When my dad came along, he said, I want a car.
Yeah.
When I came along, I said, I need a car. When you came along, you said, I need a car now. When Ethan comes along here, it's like, where's my car? I'm entitled to a car. And I think that's where the generations have gone. Now, whether that's soft, good, bad, but I think the parents, the kids are not the problem.
No, and life doesn't change neither. Like, life is hard for everybody, every generation.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. But the mindset of the parents have changed. I mean, you're already planning on getting him a car. I bought my first car. You bought your first car.
Kinda. I wrecked the first car I wrecked it, and then you made me buy one.
Exactly. But
it wasn't a nice car that you gave me.
Again. But you earned something there. And what has changed is the parents. We've gotten to a point, in my opinion, that parents want to live the life for the kid. And, we use terms at the ballpark. We call them helicopter parents because they're always hovering around.
So I've heard, there's a show there, they call it a smother.
Yeah, exactly. And, the kid can't get up and go get a Gatorade. Mom has to bring it in the dugout and walk onto the field. And it's like, that would have embarrassed me so bad in the day, I couldn't have stood it. But it's like, hey, Mom, I need Gatorade. It's what happened to, what I'm trying to say. The parents are just doing too much for the kid. Here's a perfect example, an analogy, if you will. If you go to any national park, it's signs everywhere, do not feed the animals, bears, whatever. The reason being, it's not because they don't want you to be a good visitor. They don't want the animals to be codependent on individuals.
Yeah.
And so if you feed the bears, then they forget how to go hunt. They starve to death.
That's exactly so.
And that's what's happened with this generation.
I would have played as a player if I had handled it like a business, if I'd known to handle it like a business. Dad, when I retired and we had I've told this on air before, when we had the marketing company, people would say, Nick, I want your service. Cool. You pay us at the beginning of every month. I was scared to go get the money that I had earned.
I understand.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to it made me uncomfortable to ask them for money that I had earned. It took me a long time to come into myself, because as parents, we want to protect. And then, but I was also told when I was younger, and every girl just destroyed me when they left, right? So but I was told, dude, if you hold the bird, if you squeeze it, it'll die. But if you let it go and it comes back, that's the one that you want. And a candle can only burn so hot before it burns out, type thing.
Right.
There's a lot of times when Ethan was like 7 or 8, and as a coach, I empower them to be great, and it's not for everybody. And I remember a parent one time said, Nick, take it easy. They're 7. And I said, no, you're saying it wrong. They're 7.
Right.
Right. They can do things that you don't even realize yet.
Oh, yeah, because
they're older.
Yeah, well, they're not allowed to fail.
There you go.
There's, one of the cool things about the game of baseball is you have to learn to deal with adversity.
Yes, sir.
If you're really good, you make 6 or 7 outs every time you bat 10 times.
Every time.
And that in and of itself, overcoming that failure, is really a cool thing to happen. And that's the reason that I was saying earlier, I didn't break it down to even an at bat. I broke it down to a pitch. Mm-hmm. I've got to win this pitch. Whether I'm hitting or whether I'm catching, I need to win this pitch. And I'm going to, I'm not going to plan ahead. I'm going to live this in the moment.
That's the best salesmen run their business that way.
Exactly.
They don't run it by the deal. They run it by the conversation, or the person that they're going to shake hands with next, the next introduction or whatever. You know what I mean? They define it that much more precise.
And what happens, what I see at the park, I mean, this is not just totally opinions. We have 25 to 30,000 people go through our facility each year.
Just the one downtown.
That's
right.
And not even considering Jack Lavender Field over across town. And so I see a lot of parents, and I see a lot of kids, and I see their behavior. I see how they react to adversity. I see how they react to their parents. And what I'm seeing is a lot of codependency going on here.
And truth or false, true or false here, because I say this as a coach, like you see some kids that do some stuff they shouldn't from time to time, but 9 times out of 10 altercations or embarrassments that happen to somebody, it's 9 out of 10 times it's a parent that threw a fit or acted out or embarrassed themselves or their kid.
Right.
It's rarely the kid, for every kid that throws a helmet or draws a line in the batter's box at an umpire, there's 9 other parents that made a total fool of themselves.
Again, I'm totally talking from my standpoint here to the parents of this current generation, not the kids. The kids are kids.
Yep.
The kids hadn't really changed. Parents have changed.
Yeah.
The way we parent have changed. So,
which is natural.
It's people would say, well, we've progressed or we've evolved. We don't beat our kids up every time that they do something wrong. But there is no downside of doing something wrong anymore.
Right.
And it's like they're more interested in being their friend and their buddy and not causing them to be stressed and all of these kinds of things, instead of, hey, let them learn to be independent. Let them fail sometime, and let them learn to overcome that failure. This is a statistical fact. This is not something I'm dreaming up, but almost 50% of single adults less than 40 still live at home. Almost 1 out of 2.
I won't be single, but my kid he's got to go.
I understand. but okay, that means mom is doing laundry probably.
Yeah.
Most of the meals. I mean, we got kids eating Tide Pods, but they don't know how to put them in the laundromat.
Yeah.
I mean, how bizarre is that?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, when you bought a car, you got a owner's manual with it, and it would actually tell you how to adjust the valves. Mm-hmm. Now you get an owner's manual with the car, and I'm not kidding. It tells you not to drink the wiper fluid.
Yeah.
I mean, how much have we dumbed down here?
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I realize I'm picking on the current generation, and they're saying, well, don't listen to him, he's old. Valid point. But I do see young people on a daily basis, and I'm seeing behavioral changes that are normal in many cases, but also alarming in others.
Well, both, one of my favorite things we quoted here a lot is that, because fear and failure are both just tools at the end of the day. They're a part of life regardless, and it's how you use those tools that depend on the life you have. And we say it all the time that God puts the greatest things in life on the other side of fear, and God puts the greatest things in life on the other side of failure. Right?
Exactly.
And, so as a parent, if you're protecting your kid from, like, the greatest fighters, it's Rocky Balboa, arguably the greatest fighter to ever live, right?
Right.
But he even said it. He was like, he named him Frankie Fear. He was like, because his son asked him, he's like, are you scared? He's like, absolutely I am. He was like, that's why I win.
That's normal.
Right? Because if I wasn't, then I'm going to get sucker punched, not see something coming. I'm not going to be on I'm not going to be as alert. I'm not going to be as aware, So as a business guy, as a person, fear is okay as long as it doesn't define you.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this or not. When you turned 16, what did that mean to you?
Honestly, it meant that I could drive.
That's exactly. Okay, that's my point exactly. Did you know registrations or applications for driver's licenses are way down for 16-year-olds this day and time? And you know why? Stress. It's too stressful to drive. Mom can carry me. Why do I need to learn to get my license and drive? When I was 16, I could not wait to go out and buy a car and be independent. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, oh, I don't want to go through all that stress. There's traffic out there. There's crazy drivers. Why do I want to stress out on that when Mom will carry me everywhere?
Right.
And so, I mean, again, it gets back to the codependency thing. So I'm just saying we need just lighten up a little bit, guys out there, and let the guy fail. Let him have a little stress. At some point, he's got to deal with it.
Well, you win or you learn.
Exactly.
And you got to give him an opportunity to do both.
Exactly. There needs to be, there's going to be stress in your life at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And every day, and you deal with it, you're a business owner just like I am, there's something that comes up every day that you've got to deal with.
Yep. We say it all the time, life happens.
Life happens.
But it's how you say it. Did life happen or did life happen? Baby?
Exactly.
Life happened, baby.
It could be either way.
That's right.
But, getting into some independence, and you don't have to throw them out there in the, my dad, I said, I want to learn to swim. He took me back to the pond and threw me in. And I'm not really kidding, so I learned to swim pretty quick.
They call that the old school.
Yeah. And I don't remember how you learned to swim, but we probably were in the water with you at least when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now it's like, I don't even know how that they learn to swim, or if they do, it might be too stressful. I'm not sure.
There's always a better way, and evolution is natural. However, when you lose the basic principles or the fundamentals of what it is that you're trying to do, that's usually when the mission's lost, right?
Exactly.
Right. So,
and we were going through the little phases of my life where I keep making all these career U-turns, I call them.
Mm-hmm.
They were all for a purpose, and they all served a purpose.
Sure.
The music business days, I would have still been in the music business had downloading not happened.
Yeah.
Downloading.
The digital era.
The digital era. I mean, we went from making 12 to 13 cents an album, if you got a cut on an album, to now you get part of a penny for a download.
So let me make sure everybody knows what that means. For that's an album sold.
An album sold. In other words, you mentioned the song 1982 by Randy Travis.
Yeah.
We had 2 cuts on that album.
Yeah. Let's say just for easy math, he made 10 cents per album sold, and it sold 1 million records.
Actually, that album sold 2 million.
2 million records.
And we had 2 cuts on there.
So 20 cents
yeah,
per record times 2 million. My teacher said I wouldn't have a calculator in my pocket.
$400,000.
There you go.
So and we made about $500,000 off that album. The company did. Now the same exact 2 cuts would make $35,000-$40,000.
But the expenses
same.
Yeah,
more, because now I couldn't get a writer that would sit there and write songs all week for $150-$200 a week.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Yeah, they got to get paid more on the basis, on a base actual accrual basis now.
Exactly.
Because the draw on the commission ain't there.
Ain't there. So, if I had stuck it out and I hadn't prayed heavy about it and got some divine intervention, I would have gone through you talk about, I don't really believe you're a failure. I think you were a work in progress.
Sure.
During the early days.
Well, if my life had ended right then, if the journey had ended, it was bad.
Okay, but
it was bad.
But nonetheless, you were learning it. You had to go through that learning period, and whenever I could, I tried to help you out.
Well,
but at the same time, when you're out there playing minor league baseball and you're making $1,500 a month, and your rent at home was $1,000. We tried to help you out a little, but you were learning because you went from learning electricity, you turn every light on in the house and keep it on and stay up all night, to first time over in your apartment, you didn't have any lights on other than the TV. And I said, Nick, turn some lights on. You said, I'm not going to do that. Do you know how much electricity is?
Yeah.
And I go, I happen to used to live at my house.
You and Mom did a really good job as I got. So I would say as a child, I had a wonderful childhood. Like, you coached all the stuff. Anytime I ever wanted to do anything, the answer was yes, whether it was, hey, can you throw to me, pitch to me? Can we work out? Can we go do this? Mom was like the superstar for the dugouts, the classrooms, all that kind of stuff. My house was where all the kids were. Like it was.
We had the 4 bear spots in the backyard.
That's right. We were the hosts, and it was great. It was great. And then, so obviously, when I got out of school, and I'm rebelling, and I'm becoming my own person. And I don't know who that is. I told you guys all kinds of stuff that wasn't fact about so many things. I'm raising kids now. I grew up in a wonderful house. It was amazing, but like I would say what I had was a little bit of a failure to launch, and what made me launch. I tell this story a ton. It was right about the time we started our insurance agency. I had to go to the parking lot. I borrowed money from, you guys didn't know this at the time, but I borrowed money from each of you at the same time, and you didn't know, right? So she helped me cover bills that month. And I had to call you from the parking lot when I was signing my insurance contract because I couldn't afford the license, and you had to give me your credit card from the parking lot. But you said, both of you said it at the same time, and I know you didn't talk about it. Both of you said, "This is it. Don't come back. Don't come back."
Well, we were trying to make you independent. We were trying to practice what I'm preaching today,
I knew I could come back,
and we would have brought you back.
but I was so it tore me up because I had to look at him, and I had to look at Ree when I got home, and I just felt like it was them. That honestly, it was that moment, but it was looking at them and just knowing. And it made me. I wasn't a good person. I didn't treat her like I should treat her because when you're mad at yourself, I don't know, you just take it all out on everybody else, right?
We get that. But what I did believe in you, as I believed in Nicole, is that you guys wouldn't quit. And that's really where we started this conversation today. Mm-hmm. No, we didn't prepare you to go out and be a successful businessman. But I thought we had prepared you to be a guy that would be there for the long haul and figure it out.
Well, you did prepare me. You guys did prepare me to be a businessman. What I wasn't prepared for was really just how to deal with the punches, the life punches. That was what I was. My toughness was in there because it's obviously it's came out and all those things. But I don't know. It was like I had this superpower that I didn't know when to use it or how to use it because I never had to before. So you guys had ingrained me in it, but it was like it had never. That was the failure to launch. Is the gasoline's in there, everything's ready to go, but there was never just like that ignite. And it took until I was 34, 35 years old. It was 2015 and 16 is everything Rhea and I have today is from then on. We've accomplished more in 5-6 years, a lifetime of success in 5-6 years.
I get that, but you just have to keep reinventing yourself. We talked about music business, why I got out. I loved the music business. I mean, I got to do things, B.J. Thomas was my favorite all-time singer of all times. And I'm in the recording studio with B.J. Thomas, and just things like that. And
all right, question you don't know I'm going to ask you. All right, because I get to ask this a lot, and I know his answer. What's your answer? Which one's your favorite, baseball or music? That's a tough one, man. It depends on the day for me.
Yeah. There's not a good answer for me for that. Music is just part of me. Mm-hmm. It's not what I do. It's funny. I've totally reversed careers and hobbies. Mm-hmm. I used to be in the music business, dealing with music every day, and I was coaching,
studying,
doing baseball and studying all this stuff because that was fun.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm doing baseball.
Yeah.
And I loved going when I'm asked to play something at church or whatever, or
teach him.
I get to teach Ethan some things. I got to do a writer's night just about 3 months ago.
2-3 months ago, that's right.
And that was really. I felt like a fish out of water for about the first 15 minutes because all these guys do that all the time, and I hadn't done one in forever. Mm-hmm. 30 years, but so I managed to always keep play in front of my job title. I was either playing music or I've been playing baseball, but as long as it says play before the rest of my job title, I'm pretty happy with that. I can't see the downside.
Well, so let me ask you this. I got some question for you. You didn't know I was going to ask you that question because people ask me that all the time. They're like, "Which?" Because most people remember me for the baseball stuff, the music stuff, because it was always kind of under the radar in college and stuff. But it's something that when I have free time, I don't go out in the backyard and take swings or even watch a ball game on TV. I usually sneak out to Ethan's drum room and I jam for a minute.
Oh, I get that. I got a room upstairs at our house, and some nights I go up there and just pull out there and see how many chords I can remember. Mm-hmm. I did something recently that I haven't done in 25 years. I have a friend that had a stroke, and I wanted him to stay relevant and active if possible. And I thought one of the things I could do is he and I could, even though he's in Maryville, Tennessee, we could write back and forth because of technology. I can send him this tape and he can send me that one, and so we literally long distance wrote a song, so I still enjoy the creative side of it.
That's it. It's the creative.
You mentioned when Charlie was here that there's two part of the music business. There's the music and there's the business. Mm-hmm. Don't particularly miss the business necessarily.
Yeah, I don't miss the baseball business either.
But I do miss the music.
Yeah.
And so, but the cool thing about music is it's on the radio every day. You can go to your little space and play it. Mm-hmm. We can sit around as a family like we do at holidays and let me play you this song that I just wrote or whatever, or let's get together and sing Christmas carols. And music is just a way of life. It's not necessarily what I do.
Well, you know what? We're going to talk about music for a minute. So we're going to go on ahead and put on.
Okay, let me tell your listeners a Garth Brooks story.
Go ahead, because see, it's show business, right? It's show business. So we're wearing our shades now. If you're just tuning in, streaming, listening only, we have sunglasses on. It's cool.
Garth Brooks, first of all, is a first-class individual. Forget the fact that he's a multimillionaire, iconic superstar. He's a really cool, nice guy, and as I mentioned, I was doing an album for Sony where Charlie Chase was the principal character on there, but we had all these guest artists on the same album. So Charlie says, should we get to sing this part of the song? And I said, well, everybody in the business, you interview them every night on your TV show. He said, would Garth Brooks help? And Garth had just done this 1 million-person concert in Central Park. I mean, Who has 1 million people at a concert? So I said, well, if Garth Brooks will do it, you need to grab him for sure. So first thing that happened was Kent Blasey, who was one of my writers early on, used to write with Garth all the time. In fact, Kent wrote with Garth, Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up, and If Tomorrow Never Comes, and there's probably others. And Garth used to come by my office all the time and write. But at the time he did that, he was not Garth to me. He was the guy that wrote with Kent.
Yep.
So Garth walks in and he goes, and I go, hi, Garth, Mickey Hyder. He goes, well, yeah. And I suddenly dawned on me, I don't really remember meeting Garth Brooks, but he remembers meeting me, which was kind of weird in the first place. And then secondly, he really did a phenomenal job singing, like we figured that he probably would. But he always wants to do the best he can, and he comes up and he's leaning over my shoulder as we're listening to the playback with our faces right in front of the speakers. So when he gets done, he says, well, what do you think? And I turned to him and I said, it's fine, but you're no Garth Brooks. And nobody laughed until Garth laughed. And then everybody laughed. But it was just one of those little moments that I'll never forget in the music business, and that I miss that kind of stuff.
I was on the golf course with you in one of those celebrity golf tournament things, and he was yelling at you from another hole to say hello.
Yeah, because I didn't want to bother him. I didn't want to gurm Garth Brooks while you're playing golf.
Yeah, because he was somebody then.
Yeah, he's already a big major superstar, and So I'm walking by, and I really did want to speak to him, but at the same time, I didn't want to bother him while he's playing golf. And I'm almost by him, and he goes, "Well, hey, Hollywood, you can't speak."
Yeah. And
so then I run on up to the green and shake his hand, and it was pretty cool. But he's just a great guy in addition to being a superstar.
That's right. That's right. So,
and there's others guys like B.J. Thomas passed away recently. I miss him. He was just a phenomenal guy.
Yep.
You mentioned Ken Dugan earlier. Ken, my old coach, had this great idea to do a album of music album of baseball songs.
Right, like that you would play at the stadium.
Exactly. And so I had this song called "The Show" that I don't remember the writers right this moment, but thought it was a great song.
Yeah.
And I could just hear B.J. Thomas killing it. And so I sent him a copy of the song and called him, and he agreed to do it. And that was like one of the thrills of a lifetime. I mean, your listeners, whoever your favorite singer is, just think about that for a moment and say, "Oh, I get to spend 2 days in the recording studio with your favorite singer, and you're in charge, and you're making suggestions on how he might sing it better."
Right.
That was really a trip. But that part of the business I do miss. But at the same time, I did a lot of praying when the downloading thing happened, and it was Napster, and we're getting zero then. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, well, why is somebody going to go buy an album?
Yeah.
If they can just download it for free on the internet?
Mm-hmm.
And that question's still not really totally answered.
Right.
And so I did a bunch of praying about it. Shelby became available to me. I talked to Ken Dugan about it. He helped me make up my mind to shift the gears and go from music is what I do, baseball's what I love, to baseball's what I do, music is what I love. So I just totally made a U-turn and took off in the other direction.
Well, at the time, too, that was in 1999. I was just finishing high school. We had just won the World Series. You'd won all these games. You'd done all this stuff. You were working with all these great players. A bunch of them went on to play college and professional from that time. All these scouts trusted you and everything else. So all the contacts, it was like the groundwork was there.
It was, and the park was available to me to, I had to upkeep it, but still I have total use.
Mm-hmm. Since 1999?
Yeah, since 99. And the history and the reputation. I mean, Belmont University used to play there.
Just up until a few years ago, yeah.
Yeah, 10 years ago. So, it was the perfect storm. I mean, and it really happened in the summer of 99. I got an offer to buy my music catalog from a major company on Music Row. Everybody's renewal was coming up during that summer. Mm-hmm. My lease was coming up to renew on 40 Music Square, downtown Music Row.
Yep, 40 Music Square East, I still remember.
Yep, and all of that's happening that summer of 99. At the same time, Shelby is available to me if I want to step up and be responsible and sign a contract with the Old Timers to be the caretaker. But I get unlimited use as needed to do my events and other things where I could actually make a living doing so. And God had to be involved in that from my standpoint. I'm not going to. Some people don't base their decisions on prayer, but I certainly prayed a lot over that one.
I think everybody does at some point, even if it's the last moments.
Yeah.
I think everybody comes around at some point.
Yeah. It was one of those deals where I'd spent 20 years building up a music catalog and making all these contacts and doing all the things, networking you have to do to make a living in the music business. And just to shut the doors, walk away, hand another company the keys. Yeah. Here's my catalog. I don't own any of this anymore. It was really a hard decision.
Well, you got to work with a lot of amazing people. You did most of about half of Aaron Tippin's big hits where
Yeah.
you published those, which that was really cool. So as a teenager, I spent a lot of time at your office, right?
And at the recording studio.
At the recording studio, most of the stuff, like it's so cool when I tell Ethan, like we're listening to a track, and I'm like, dude, I watched the drummer play this. I can tell you exactly what he did because I watched it. It's one of the coolest things, and being around. I learned about drill bits because when we were putting in your sign on the front door and we pulled that drill bit out of the thing, it burnt the snot out of my finger because it was from drilling through concrete. I'll never will forget that. I remember when Timothy B. Schmidt of the Eagles was jogging down Music Row. I can remember every time Charlie Monk walked in the building, it was like when Kramer walked in at Seinfeld. He didn't bust in like that, but it had the same effect. Like it was like the wind twirled and you just knew he was there.
Absolutely.
And it was just Danny Myrick, who was he was a previous guest. Episode just aired. I can remember when he first started songwriting in there, and Bruce Gust, who is Ethan's drum instructor now. When they were waiting on their deal, he ran your front office for a minute, and I remember he didn't know you had an intercom on the phone, and about halfway through the day, he came back there in a puddle of sweat because he was running back and forth,
telling everybody somebody you're on line one.
And you're like, hey man, you can just push that button, and he goes, oh. Mick. I just have so many great memories. Montgomery Gentry, when they came in, when they were getting their start, they sat on your couches right in front of your desk.
Right.
I could go on and on. It was just one of the coolest experiences as a teenager. I didn't realize how much I paid attention until later on in life I could reference it and remembered so much of it. It was just really cool to be able to do that. And then mentioning Aaron Tippin, who Ethan's a big fan, and not long, just last summer, he's performing locally, and you and Miss Kay took Ethan where Ethan got to meet him and go in his tour bus.
Yeah, the pictures made on his bus, so it's pretty cool.
So it truly is, and it's been we still get perks because of your time in there from seeing Kenny Chesney out and you walking up to him and him knowing who you are and all that kind of stuff. It's just so cool.
Nicole, your sister, has Kenny Chesney's first ever autograph.
That's right, because he signed it that way.
Yeah.
That's how we know.
Exactly. Well, we had a Aaron Tippin number one party, and we invited Kenny because Kenny was just a songwriter that sang $50 demos for me. Mm-hmm. And
he was a good songwriter too.
He was a really good songwriter. He still is.
I guess he still is, yeah.
But anyway, we invited Kenny to all these different events because we want him to, get to know Music Row and just basically network, And so Nicole always had a little autograph book that she kept with her. And, of course, she already had Aaron's and the other celebrities that were there. And I said, go over and get that guy's autograph. She said, who is that? And I said, his name is Kenny Chesney. And she said, who is that? And I said, he's not anybody yet, but he's going to be. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, he had nothing going at that point. Mm-hmm. So Nicole walks over to him and says, can I have your autograph? And Kenny actually said, oh, honey, you don't want my autograph. I'm not anybody. And she said, but my dad says you're going to be. He said, who's your dad? And she said, Mickey Hyder. He said, here, let me sign that. Mm-hmm. And so he writes on there, Nicole, you're a lot prettier than your dad or something like that. Kenny Chesney, and it's his first ever autograph.
That's right. And
so she's kept that all these years, and that's just another one of those cool music business stories.
That's right. So, all right, I'm going to take the glasses back off now.
Thank you.
The music business portion is over. All right, so I got some topics and questions for you, and then I want to give it to Ethan and see what he's got. So, Ethan, first of all, have you you're going to want to pull that microphone back up towards your face just a little bit when we get there. Remember, pull it from the there you go. So, obviously the mic's not hot yet, but have you shaking your head? Have you learned anything today? All right, cool. I can't wait to hear what your question is. We never know what he's going to say, but it's always good. It's always good. So, all right. So we talked a lot about the differences in past and present generations, right? So, we talked a little bit about why career changes, right? So, but talk to me about some of the advantages and disadvantages of self-employment. This is going to be really popular topic around here.
Yeah, and I get I get that it is, and it's not for everybody.
Well, and again, in the 80s and 90s, maybe even the early 2000s, like if you went to college 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, there was a return, net positive return on that investment in yourself, no matter who paid for it, right? Now there's not necessarily.
It's according to what you do with it.
For a lot of people, it's a 4-year vacation.
A lot of people. That's a drinking party.
A drinking party. And if you come out with the right contacts, it might be worth it, but you're not walking out with a job.
Exactly. And that's self-employment is for that person that's a self-motivator that has that attitude of persistence. I mean, there's just no way around that. Mm-hmm. If you can get up every morning and look forward to getting up every morning because you got something to accomplish that day, if you're willing to do that every day as needed, not as when it's convenient, then you can be self-employed. That you got to still have a good idea, a good product, a good service, whatever, and you're going to have to go through some failures to learn to get there. Mm-hmm. And that depends upon experience and intelligence. And like I said, I had to make up for lack of intelligence with experience and figure that out. But you know, the thing about it being self-employed, if you're willing to do whatever it takes, you might be able to be a successful self-employed person. But if you're not willing to do whatever it takes, I mean, it doesn't matter how many hours you spent. It doesn't matter how much money you invested. And none of that matters if you don't make the sale, you don't close the deal, you don't do the event, you don't make anything.
You don't eat.
You don't eat. And you've just got to, you've just got to stay with it until the job is done. And then you get rewarded. And if you're not willing to spend whatever time that is, whatever effort that is, then you really need to go think about getting a good job somewhere.
When I'm very aware, I talk a lot about how, obviously I'm big on the self-employment thing, right? Especially because that's what we do. We launch agencies, we launch businesses, we work with a ton of small business owners, and I love those folks because like I feel like it's like hanging around with people that are just like you to a certain degree. So, but I also am aware that if everybody owned a business, every business would have one employee, and there would, and you know what I'm saying? And so there has to be some people that it's not for everybody. But I do feel that it's for more than they think.
Yeah, there's, as I said,
not everybody wants to, like, the childhood I had, I couldn't have had if you and my mother had bosses.
Correct. No, that's fact.
My whole life would have been different because she couldn't have done all the things she did at the school, and you could have did all the things that you did on the ball fields and everything else.
That's correct. Because I was self-employed, I had the time or the flexibility is a better way of saying it, to be where I needed to be. And that one of the reasons I wanted to be self-employed is I wanted to do, even though I had to work sometimes all night long to get the job done. By the way, I don't know if you've thought about this, but I always had 2 jobs. Mm-hmm. I had the primary job, like when I was in the music business. Yes, I was Monday through Friday at the publishing company or at the recording studio or whatever. But every weekend, we're loading up the van and heading out playing some gig somewhere. And
so I have two stances on that. So on the evolution, on one, and it depends on how you say it. If you could say that the gigging on the weekends was just a good networking tool and a part of the music business, it was just another way to expand in the business you were already in.
Yeah. Right.
Versus I had plan B, because I think plan B is the death of plan A. I think if you got a safety net, you use it.
Well, that's what I always, the gig money was my Kroger money. Mm-hmm. It was
not anymore.
Not anymore. But my point was, that was my running money during the week. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm trying to say? I had a salary that I'm drawing from the publishing company that happens and that was my mortgage and the car notes and all the big stuff. But the standard of living, how many steaks we bought that week, or, if we took a vacation or not, or a lot of that stuff was just depending upon how much time I was going to spend going out doing extra gigs in the band. And then I did the same thing most of the rest of life. Yes, I'm running Sandlot baseball, doing 15 or 20 events a year and doing all this. But I was also teaching lessons at Hit After Hit.
Which is, again, an extension.
Extension of what I'm doing, because I got to meet countless number of dads that were bringing their kids to me to do.
Yeah. And, I wrestled with that a long time, because you always positioned it like you had a safety net, but it really wasn't a safety net. It was just an extension to enhance the rest of it.
Yeah, but in the back of my mind, I knew I could at least feed you guys, because I was going to do X number of gigs or X number of, and that was, to me, it was kind of a safety net. But
that's just like me saying, as long as I have this many clients.
Well, yeah, it is. It totally is. And as it turned out, I got to meet a lot of people doing those jobs, those little secondary jobs that I did. I mean, I would look totally different now if it weren't for a gynecologist. Now, let me explain that.
Hold on. There it is.
I gave lessons to Terry Atkins' son.
Adam, who's now
Adam Atkins,
played at UT.
Played at University of Tennessee.
And now he's the groundskeeper at, is it Legends? The Legends golf course here locally, I believe?
I'm
99% sure it's one of those. I think it's that one.
He's a head groundskeeper. But anyway,
unbelievable.
I'm teaching a lesson at Shelby Park. A ball goes through a net and literally would have hair-lipped me. I mean, if I didn't have this mustache on today and you wanted to look really closely, you could see the scar. But I get completely knocked down teaching this lesson with a baseball that's a line drive, probably 100 miles an hour off the bat, and it hits me in the face. So I'm down for the count. In fact, the kid that's looking at me is going, "Oh man, you're bleeding really bad," and which kind of scared me when you're laying on your back. But so what? I can't think of any doctors other than Terry Atkins, who is a gynecologist. So I called up Terry and said, "Terry, I know this is a little bit out of your line of work, but I'm cut really bad, and I'm going to need some plastic surgery here." And he said, "Well, you're in luck. I literally have a plastic surgeon in my medical group here at the hospital." So I skip the emergency room. I go straight to Dr. Werther, and I still remember it because he gave me a Werther candy.
I bet he did.
No, he really did.
I bet he did. That's smart.
That was his family that made Werther candies. But I go straight because Terry comes and meets me at the door and walks me up to his office, and he literally does plastic surgery and fixes my lip that's cut all the way through. Now, why did I tell that stupid story? Because if I hadn't given lessons to Adam Atkins, I don't know Terry, and that doesn't happen.
Yep.
And you understand what I'm saying. I've had guys give me some very nice sponsorship donations, donations where I've given their kids lessons and things like that. That happens all the time. Countless number of guys that I have coached over the years, either in lessons or on teams that I coached, have gone on to coach and done other things really incredible.
My wife was appalled when she's in the hospital. Ethan's being born. They've got her cut open because to give her the cesarean, and the doctor looks at my wife. She said, and he said, "Hyder, you any kin to Mickey?" What, mid-surgery. And she was like, "Oh my God, yes." True story.
I'm getting
network, baby.
Yeah, I'm getting an appendix taken out, and I'm laying on the table in the hospital for them to remove my appendix, and the guy says, "Hey, aren't you Mickey? And I go, yeah. And the guy, and I still don't know who it was to this day because I'm under anesthesia. He pulls his mask down and said, so-and-so. And I went, oh, hi. And he pulls it back up and I'm out. And I could figure out who it was. But being, with 25,000 people, 30,000 people going through the park each year, me teaching lessons to, I don't know how many hundred kids or coaching that many kids. I've really made a lot of contacts and people have treated me very kind. When the flood at 2010 wiped out everything at Shelby Park, I had over 100 people show up on a Saturday to bail me out.
It was incredible.
It was totally incredible. 100 volunteers showed up at Shelby Park just to help me out, to help me get back where the field was playable again.
It was incredible. Well,
And
we've been talking a lot about baseball, so a lot of folks are going to want to know, what is Sandlot? What is Sandlot? With 2 T's.
Sandlot with 2 T's.
2 T's.
It's
Why? Why did you misspell it, Dad?
It was an acronym.
An acronym, got it.
Select Amateur National Development Leagues of Travel Teams.
That's right. I got you. And that wouldn't fit on a hat.
That wouldn't fit on the hat. So we, in Sandlot being a generic term in some ways,
Yeah.
to differentiate, do the 2 T's at the end.
There you go.
Sandlot is a sanction.
So what did it start as?
It's pretty much started as a sanction that sanctioned leagues.
Yep.
Because I said Sandlot National Development Leagues of Travel.
And that's how the events came to.
And
you'd have to have the event
at the end
of the leagues, right?
Yeah. So we would sponsor. We had what we call the Sandlot Super Leagues, where I would find 2 teams from Cincinnati, 2 teams from Dayton, 2 teams from Louisville, and they would play a round robin amongst themselves over 3 weekends.
It's, things go and come back. It's about time for that to happen. So you might want to trademark that little idea there because it's about time for that to
flip around again.
Absolutely.
And then people wanted so badly to do tournament. So we started doing a 13, 14, 15, so on and so forth. Tournaments. We're different because we play with wood bats because I think that's the way most kids learn. You became a much better hitter because I forced you to use a wooden bat during the off season.
Yeah, it's you do everything. Sandlot is it's baseball at its purest form for the most part. It's as close to the rules and everything are as close to like Major League Baseball
as possible. Yeah, right. we do certain things as far as certain limitations of contact,
courtesy runners,
just to make it better, to get more kids involved
and time.
But at the same time, but we're basically playing straight up baseball. Everything else, there's a few little nuances to make it get more kids participating and to make the game a little safer because we have the high school type slide rule where you're supposed to avoid contact if all possible because we don't want to get anybody hurt. But other than that, we're pretty much straight up baseball.
That's right.
And yes, and I want them to learn it that way. And
yeah.
But we're trying to develop kids, and I'm not talking about just get this kid a scholarship. We've got guys that 12-year-olds worrying about getting the kid a scholarship, and I come on, don't.
No, you're worried about creating husbands and fathers and businessmen and
absolutely, we want to develop
community.
Kids.
Yeah,
I mentioned that what I love about baseball, it teaches them to deal with adversity. I want them to grow up as people. I want them to, we're providing a service by providing those fields. I cut those fields 5 times a week, and that's not necessary, but it is for me because I want a kid that's driven in from Dayton, Ohio, or from Richmond, Virginia, to play on the nicest field we can provide for him.
That's right.
And because of the respect of the R.A. Dickies in the world who thought about Shelby Park when he's standing on the mound in Yankee Stadium, we want that to preserve that history. We want to preserve that thought process, that whole feel of this is a special place and this is a special time, and we want you to enjoy it and learn something from it.
That's right.
And so, we're just trying to provide a venue and an event that's something a little special that is developing that individual in a team environment.
There you go. All right. So we've got old MVP sitting over there, the grandson. All right. So Ethan, I'm going to turn your mic up right here. All right. Now, excuse me. Gosh, there has been something in my throat for a few minutes. I hope I didn't. Hope that wasn't too rough on our listeners, man. I apologize for that. All right. So, all right, Ethan, we can hear you now. That's awesome.
All right.
So, first of all, to those watching, he's got a big old piece of jewelry on his finger.
Yeah.
What is that?
It is a championship ring that we won on Saturday
That's right. You guys won a big old tournament
in Huntsville.
on this past Saturday, right? So that's cool. Yes, sir. Well, I'm glad you wore it in there. That's good for you, man. So, all right. We have no idea what he's about to do right here, right?
Which is a little unnerving.
I'm used to it by now. So he's always done right. So Ethan, is there what? All right.
I do have.
Have you learned stuff today?
Yes.
Awesome.
From school and from here. I do have one thing to say to him real quick. So there's one thing he always says to me. He says he has shoes older than me.
Yeah.
And
he still says that to me.
I know.
And I do.
I wanted to say it, but this thing wasn't on. When he was talking about Sandlot, the field, I was like, well, I bet you don't have any shoes older than that.
Well, I do not.
I'll give you one.
So.
However, there's shoes at the park from 1971 that I literally wore at college, and I have pictures of me wearing those very shoes. They're in the trophy case at Shelby Park. So 1971, how many years is that? 50 something?
Yeah, just a long time.
Yeah, 51.
Yeah.
51 years ago. So I've got 51-year-old shoes for real.
Mm-hmm. So we'll pull that microphone up just a little bit. There you go.
There we go.
All right. So do you have a question for Pops?
One, what is your favorite thing with baseball and about it? And what is your favorite thing in music and about it?
Baseball. My favorite thing about baseball is, and I've already mentioned this, I like the fact that it's overcoming. I like it because you can be unsuccessful a lot and still be ultimately the winner. I mean, you experienced this past week. I talked to your dad about it, where that you started off the tournament not so good, and you ended up getting a key hit right in with the bases loaded, right when it really mattered. Well, that's a life lesson. That is a beautiful thing to happen. You just overcame major failure where you hadn't had a good tournament at all and end up being part of the winning solution. So that's the favorite part about baseball, because I think it develops guys like you and it interests guys like me, because it's a fascinating game. I watch, we play 500 games a year at the Old Timers Baseball Facility.
Gosh.
And every week I see something in baseball that I've never seen before. It's just that weird of a game. Now, the other question was, in music,
Yeah.
what was...
Just what's your favorite thing about music and about it?
Favorite thing about music to me is the creativity part. I love the songwriting process, where that something is created from nothing. And somebody asked me recently, why is some songs better than others? Why is the song good? Or what? First of all, I used to tell the writers it's art for art's sake and money for Pete's sake. But that's that's another thing altogether. But
13.
I'm speaking about country music now, because country music is different from rock and roll or hip hop or something, because the lyrics to country are kind of like the center point of the song. And if in a country song, and I told the writers this all the time, if that song doesn't make me laugh, cry, or think, you didn't write it. So I love the creative process
14.
to a point where it's commercial enough to sell so we can make some money, but at the same time, make me laugh, cry, or think.
You tell me that. You've told me that before, because I know I've heard it. Either you told me that or he did. No, he did. Yep. And it's probably going to be different for me and you, because my dad and Bruce will get this. Because since I'm a drummer, when I listen to music, I don't just think it, or I feel it, because I can feel like...
Again, that you're
All that.
part of the rhythmic part.
Yeah, exactly.
What you play is what you hear the most of in what stands out in the track, right? So,
And I can just I tune down any other instrument. Sometimes I just hear the drums. Like if I'm listening to a track that you recorded with Bruce and he's playing, I try to listen to see what he's doing, or like Dave Matthews, I listen to that kind of stuff and all kinds of stuff. See, because that's how sometimes I can play by ear.
But let me give you some advice there. You know, one of the reasons that we always, when we cut tracks, we would always have a scratch vocal, going on there. Because we wanted the musicians to hear what the song was saying. Because if a really, really smart drummer, if it says the thunder rolls, they'll do some type of little tom-tom roll or something right on that lyrical thing.
Garth Brooks.
So, yeah. So.
Yep. Like if something like it says bells or something, sometimes they'll have chimes and do that. Yeah.
Exactly. So, it's a part of the creative process. So lyrics still, a song has to say something to, one of the things about getting older is that you tend to remember certain songs by certain things that happen in your life and vice versa. And, again, that just becomes a part of kind of who you are. But it's always something that song said that makes it memorable. It's, you don't just hum the melody. You sing along.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, having the lyrics have to say something in most cases, even if it's something dumb. At least, or if it's at least memorable, it makes the song commercial.
There's one song that reminds me of that. The Big One by Confederate Railroad.
You like that one, don't you?
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
Folks,
Search
if
it up
you
and
haven't heard
come
The
back.
Big One by Confederate Railroad, give it a, especially all you Southern churchgoers out there, it'll fit right in for you. So,
So good.
well,
Laugh, cry, or think. So it makes you laugh. That's nothing wrong with that. That's
So-
all good.
And it's country too, even better.
So Ethan, you're very blessed to have. I was fortunate enough. I had both of my grandfathers very late in life. I didn't lose either one of them until I was in my 30s. It's a long time to have a grandfather. And Pops, you turned 73 in September. Is that right?
Yeah, you didn't have to bring that up.
Well, it's incredible. Like I tell people all the time, people are going to expect this out of me in 30 years.
Well, yeah.
And that may not be like, because you go hard, man. You go hard, and I can't tell a difference in you versus 10 years ago, or even as far back as like 20 years ago. Like, it's crazy. You're still doing the same things, the same routines. Not much has changed. So they say when you get older, your strength don't go with your flexibility, right? And stuff like that. But like, that was a good one. All right, I'll give myself one. But he hardly ever gets sick, or he's just too stubborn or tough to know that he is sick, right? That may be the case.
That may be the
We're
case.
still up for debate on that.
Or
But when you get older, When you watch me chase your baby sister around the house in a few years, and I'm moaning and groaning about how everything aches and stuff, kind of like I already do now, I want you to remember this. It's crazy that he's above the age of 70 and doing what he's doing.
Well, the Lord has...
Hard to believe.
And I mean this with all of my heart and all of my soul. The Lord has blessed me way above a normal existence.
I mean, everybody talks about it though, Dad. Like, so at 65, what was the thing you had to do for, you had to bench press?
I bench pressed 315 5 times.
315 5 times at 65. Yeah.
Holy crap.
At 65. Now we get them mixed up. There was one at 60 and one at 65. I think at 60 you were going to bench press 25 times.
Yeah, and I didn't make it. I only got like 23.
23 and a half.
That's still good.
23 and a half, because the combine, the most that somebody did at the NFL combine that year was like 23 or 24. You're like, I can do 25. You got 23 and a half, but at 65 you wanted to bench press 305, I think.
It's 315.
315, whatever 3 plates is in the bar, right?
That's 315.
315, got it. 315 5 times.
That was the plan, yes.
That's crazy, dude.
That was crazy. And I could still do most of that if I hadn't have fallen off the porch trying to save a guitar, which is a crazy story out of itself. I did a forward flip to try to, because a guitar is falling off the porch. And
those were the end of your bench press days.
That was it. End of it.
Well, if you wanted to get your shoulder fixed, you could do it.
Yeah. Well, I still bench press, but I just don't do heavy anymore. I do more reps.
Well, it's crazy. Those are the folks that are watching. Like, I mean, it's unreal. People still talk about it all the time. People ask me all the time, man, like, how old's your dad? What is he like? I'm like, dude, he's in his 70s. They're like, what? There's no way.
I'm going to do I'll do 73 push-ups this year on my 73rd.
There you go. That sounds like a good TikTok and Instagram to me. Well, Ethan, what other do you have any other questions for Pop before I mute you?
What? There is one thing I was going to say with the baseball subject. Please remember it.
That's all right. Take your time.
Yeah, it was last Thursday. I've been in, like, for some reason, a slump. I've done the work, and again, baseball, like he said, makes you. Well, no, that doesn't make you think. It doesn't make you laugh or anything like that. That's music. But we were.
It makes you have to overcome failure a lot.
Exactly. So sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed, and I was failing a ton, and you could see that I was just not liking it. So we stayed, and legit, 10 hits, the 11th one, dinger. Then the second one, dinger. Third one, dinger. I had 3 home runs in a row. And we just overcame something right there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the cool part.
Exactly. That's what's so cool about baseball. Like, you
that is
overcome things. It gives you happiness. It'll give you sadness. It gives you certain emotions.
Yeah. Well, do you have any questions for him about any of the stories you've heard, or his childhood, or anything like that?
For him.
Okay.
How'd you win a golf tournament with a cracked rib?
Well, first of all, at any age, don't run down a spiral staircase in sock feet. So that's how you get a cracked rib.
Okay.
And as you probably mentioned, the only thing health-wise I've had concerns is where I did something to me, where I lifted a tractor that I shouldn't have lifted, or ran down a spiral staircase in sock feet. And the golf tournament, actually turned out to be a blessing because I didn't overswing. With a cracked rib, I couldn't take a full swing, so I kept hitting the ball right down the fairway because I didn't overdo it. So, see, even adversity can cause blessings if you just look at it in the right way.
Well, they usually do. You know, that's right. That's right. Well, E, you good? You good, buddy? You got anything else for Pops before we bring this sucker to a close?
Close it.
All right. Well, I have your permission. Okay.
Hey,
awesome.
I would like to say this before we go.
Go ahead.
Oh, come on.
First of all, I'm really proud of Ethan learning these lessons. I'm proud that you're teaching him these lessons, but I'm also proud that you're doing this podcast, Hitstreak, to give some people some insight, not because anything that I had to say today, but there's people that have lived different lives because of experiences, and people can profit from hearing about those experiences. Mm-hmm. You mentioned all the failures that you had. I could mention many that I had, and it would have been really nice if there had been something like this that I could have tuned into.
Absolutely.
And got some ideas and some clue about
Absolutely.
things.
Some of the greatest minds of our time were never heard.
Exactly. I was so pleased that you had Charlie Monk on here, because
Unbelievable. Thank you for getting him on here, by the way.
I learned so much from Charlie Monk when I was in the music business. He was my mentor, if you would. Danny Myrick, he was one of the most creative guys that I dealt with. I loved him.
Did you see what he wrote on the wall? So he signed right above Charlie's name, and he said, "I always wanted to be above Charlie."
There you go. So,
That's a good one.
But like I said, you've had some great people on here,
right?
Not just success stories, but great people. And I hope that you do this for a long time, and I hope more and more listeners will listen in, and I hope that some of the parents out there will take what we said today kindly and digest it, and not just get mad about it because we called them out.
It's
Your house
crazy.
on lockdown.
It's
your house on lockdown.
It's crazy. We're in, just through all of our outreach and everything, every single month through this podcast, we're touching hundreds of thousands of folks. It's nuts. And we're in, last time we checked, it was like 9 countries. We have listeners in 9 countries.
That's excellent.
And all 50 states here. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, the amount of outreach that this thing's been getting.
If I can get 2.6 million views doing how-to baseball things,
On
I
YouTube.
think you're just getting started.
That's right. Well, it is a lot of fun, and we've had some great folks on here, and the roster of guests that are already booked, and what we call the hit list.
Yep.
My hit list
that's
for the
cool.
for the hit streak, right? There's 75 people that have been recommended or whatever, where we're just figuring out when the right time is and all that stuff. It really is. And what about what Lance and them did to this room right here?
It's incredible. It's just like it's a for real studio. It's not just a room with some lights and a couple of microphones in it. It's a studio, and it's quite impressive, to say the least. And I just wanted to thank the Hitstreak listeners for listening in today, and probably nothing I said will change their lives any, but at the same time, this is a place to find some really good information. I hope they'll keep listening.
Well, it's all about perspective, and it's cool to bring a whole bunch of folks with different perspectives.
Absolutely.
Right? It works out great. So, Ethan, people still rave about his episode, and that was when it was early in the
Like January 18th, I think.
It was early in the series, and people still talk about that episode. You know what I mean? And so I'm excited to. He made some commitments on that episode where I got to bring him back and see if we could do that. You could probably tell all kinds of stories and stuff. I mean, we really barely scratched the surface, and we've been going on here for about an hour and a half. I mean, the time flies.
It does.
The time flies. So. Let's see. My last question for you before I make sure everybody knows where to find you. And by the way, folks, it is baseball season. So if you are if your team is the ages of 13 to 18, and you have not found your everybody wants to come to Nashville. Anyways, when you come to Nashville, you need to play Sandlot.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you where to register in just a moment. But Pop, let me ask you this. So if you had to look to like, obviously work ethic has always been big in our family, and it's changed over the last couple decades, some for the better and some not for the better, right? But that's the way time works.
Yep.
A few keys to success, right? From because you could, and this would, whether you're in baseball, music, or whatever else. What are some keys to success for those wanting to make improvements?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's work ethic, and that's a broad topic. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a general term. But no matter what, if you don't complete the assignment, the job, whatever it is you're doing, you haven't done anything.
That's right.
And so you have to close the deal. You have to accomplish the task. You have to complete the event. Mm-hmm. So I think it's about tenacity and finishing. Mm-hmm. You know, we talk in sports all the time, like finish. Mm-hmm. You know, we
finish what you're
doing. You know, especially in football, they say, well, we played great a whole game, we just didn't finish.
Yeah.
Well, that works in life.
That's right.
So whatever business you're doing, finish.
That's right. I'm real big on, I love ideas, and everybody's got ideas. You got it first, you think it, then you got to create it, but then you got to execute it.
Executing. And if you don't execute, you wasted your time in the first two steps.
And probably a lot of other people's as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And probably time, money, and effort.
That's right. Well, folks, it was really cool to have my dad on the podcast today. Really, really cool. Mickey Hyder. And check it. He is on Facebook and Twitter. And by his name, Mickey Hyder. He's on Instagram as well as Facebook and Twitter from at Sandlot Sports. And his website is sandlotter.com. And
2 T's.
That's right, with 2 T's, sandlotter.com. And that's a great place to register for tournaments and events and stuff, right?
Absolutely. There's still room, but they need to move soon.
They need to move soon because it's that time of year where people start registering. The guys that got their stuff together register in November.
Yep.
And then this is all the other guys where whatever happened, the events didn't make it other places or whatever not, or there's those coaches. I've been that guy too. So it is what it is. But sandlotter.com is where they can check it out, and obviously check you out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also special thanks to my main man, the boy, the guy I'm most proud of, my other hero, Ethan.
You always call him your Minnie. Mm-hmm. I call you my Maxie.
Oh, there you go. And we got to end it right there.
One thing.
What?
Even though it's the first time I've counted, 17 hits.
17
that's
hits on the hit streak. That was pretty good. I probably missed a couple in there. That's awesome. Well, Dad, seriously, thanks for hanging with me today, man. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Pleasure.
And we'll do it again. We'll definitely do it again. Ethan, thank you, buddy.
Thank you. I'll be here again, too.
Appreciate you, man. So, well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hit Streak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.